Good morning and welcome back to the NNP Symposium for day 3. We are here this morning with Daryl Haynor, the author of United States Classic Gold Coins of 1834 to 1839, the NLG award-winning 2020 Book of the Year. So Daryl, you can go ahead and turn on your video and microphone if you would like. So for this presentation, we'll be hearing about the economic and political context of the 1830s and focusing on that historical aspect of the series. And this is also the only book that is currently available on the series and has become the definitive reference for multiple different authorities in the industry. So if you have any questions during the presentation, audience members, you are welcome to send them in with the Q&A at the bottom of your screen, and we'll get around to some of those at the end. In the meantime, Daryl, you may take it away.
Hey, thanks, Leanna. Good morning, everybody. Thanks for inviting me, Leanna, to the symposium. I've had a wonderful time at some of the prior symposium meetings and I look forward to the rest of them. Hello, everyone. Welcome to this early Sunday morning version of the NMP. And if there's anybody watching from the West Coast, where I guess it's 7 a.m. in the morning, well, you must really love your hobby and commend you for joining. I realize that most of you, if not actually all of you, do not actively collect the Classic Gold series. The series isn't well known. I call it the stepchild of early gold coins in the US. So keeping that in mind, I'm going to focus this presentation on topics that I think will be of interest to you, hopefully all of you. We're going to explore, as Leanna said, political and financial environment, the operation of the mint during the 1830s, and because I think the decade of the 1830s was perhaps the most transformative and dynamic as any decade in the entire history of the mint and our country's coinage. We will get into some of the specifics on Classic Gold series. We're not going to take a deep dive or just a primer 101 today on the coins. I guess you can go ahead and, if you're interested, take a look at the book if you want more information. And for those of you who stay around for the whole presentation, I'm going to disclose some cherry picking opportunities for you, so stick around for that. Speaking of the book, here's the front cover. There was a deluxe version of it, but that sold out within a couple of weeks. I started researching classic gold coins back in 2008 or so when I had an interest in starting a collection of the series. My collecting style is doing a real in-depth study of a series that I'm interested in. I'd practice grading, go to shows, put my finger over the grade, and do that for a year or so to get comfortable with the series. And of course, I'd follow the old adage of buying the book before the coin. Problem was I couldn't buy the book because there wasn't one. I think this series might have been the last one in the US to not have a reference book dedicated to it. There was some information out there. I found the Breen Encyclopedia. He based much of his writings on 19 teens and 20s research by early collectors such as William Wooden and John Clapp. As we've now come to understand, Breen gave us a dearth of information, but he also gave us some inaccurate information as well, so you had to parse through that. John McCloskey researched this series. He presented a paper in 1989 on half eagles and did further research, and as you can see, he's up on the front of the cover as an author because we used his valuable information in putting this book together. Doug Winters covered some information on branch mint coins, of course, in many of the books he's written on gold coins. And Mark Borchardt at Heritage categorized all the quarter eagles that passed through the Heritage auction. So there was some information out there. I started my collection and kept on with the research, and after 5 years of extensive research, dawned on me that I had the makings of a book. So probably being as naively, humanly possible, you can see my IT department is sneaking in here in case I have any problems. I decided to turn in my research material into a book. No idea it would take another 5 years to do that. Let's look at some history leading up to 1834. Gold coins did not circulate much at all after the wind down of the War of 1812. What did circulate was a hodgepodge of US and foreign coins, mostly cents through the $half. A half eagle or a $5 gold coin, that was more than a week's pay for hard laborers. So they didn't circulate that much. The gold coins were used mostly for specie reserves of the major banks in the country. The U.S. was on a 15-to-1 standard, while the rest of the world was, call it on average, 15.8 to 1 or so. Major countries were, like Spain, were 16 to 1. So the U.S. undervalued its gold, and as a result, many gold coins produced up until that time ended up being exported and melted for their 6% premium. Enter Jackson as president in 1828. He strongly supported a bimetallic system. He loathed the second bank of the United States and Nicholas Biddle, who was its president. He didn't trust the notes that the bank were issuing and floating, any notes for that matter. The second bank was only owned 20% by the United States, and they even had foreign shareholders. That all irked Jackson a bit. He vetoed the extension of the second bank charter. He moved all the U.S. deposits to pet state banks. This was around 1832 to 1833. And by 1836, the second bank was no more. But by reducing the reliance of the monetary system on banknotes, which were actually circulating fairly well, at least the second banknotes, Jackson had to replace them so the system could continue to operate. He was very keen to ramp up the production and circulation of silver and gold coins, or specie, to become a replacement in the monetary system. So along comes the Act of June of 1834 that put the U.S. on the 16-to-1 gold standard, reducing the weight of its gold coins. As a result, the classic gold quarter eagles and half eagles were born. And on August 1st, 1834, the first day legally possible, the first half eagle was struck. It was actually sent to President Jackson, who at that particular time was at his home convalescing, which was the Hermitage in Tennessee. So as I said, I think the decade of the 1830s was very transformative. Coins did start to circulate, including certain foreign coins that could now, under a new law that was passed as current money. The motto, E pluribus unum, was removed from coins, creating quite a stir. And the Liberty Cap was removed to make room for a fillet, or cincture, which is the terms are what they used at the time. We just call it a ribbon now, I guess. Franklin Peel, an employee at the Mint, made a trip to Europe in 1833 and spent 2 years there and came back with a trove of information as to how to improve mint operations. Most every aspect of the manufacture of coins at the Mint was improved during the late 1830s. By the end of the decade, the U.S. Mint went from a backwater operation to perhaps one of the best in the world. Most widely known changes was the introduction of the toggle steam press, introduced in 1836, and finally in 1833, the Mint moved from its first building to the second Philadelphia Mint building. A few more things on the 1830s. The Branch Mint Act was passed to address the first gold rush in the United States, which was in the southern states. By 1838, coins were being minted in Charlotte, Dahlonega, and New Orleans. Mint marks, appeared on the obverse of the coins. An interesting feature that first appeared on the classic gold. Christian Gobrecht appears on the scene in 1835, and by 1840, he becomes chief engraver. The Gobrecht dollar is produced, Liberty seated series is started, and much more design work is performed. So with respect to the coins at the time, or the classic golds, we hear monikers of old gold, old tenor coins, but that stopped in 1834 with the draped series. Books that you might see on quote new gold or new tenor, early late gold, the Liberties and the Indians. Those books or references normally start around 1839. Classic gold was just the stepchild and left out. So because of this transformation that I just described, which classic gold played a very important part, I just put it in its own class and I call it transition gold. No need to put it in either bucket. So there's a little background on the mint in the 1830s. So let's go and talk a little bit now about the coins. First on the design, on the design of the coins at the direction of the mint director Samuel Moore, the engraver William Nice, some say Nias, went back to the design of the half cents and cents. Though through all my research at the archives, I could not find anything directly supporting the notion that Nice used the cent and half cent obverse as a model, but that appears a little self-evident. Cents were minted 1808 to 1814, I believe, and cents are 1834. As you can see in the design, Nice gave Liberty more of a neoclassical look. You'll see that the nose is more pronounced. I'm going to get my pointer up and going here. You see that I have a laser, if you follow the little red spot. The brow's lowered. Look at the lips, they're much more bulbous. The jaw juts out a little bit more, and the neckline is a little bit thinner. So some cosmetic changes to Liberty. Breen in his book described the classic Liberty as the androgynous Liberty, which I kind of like that description. Here's the prior design that was replaced, cap bust left, which was minted since 1813 right up to 1834. The major change to the obverse was the removal of the cap in favor of a headband, which, as I said before, they referred back then to as a fillet or cincture. On the reverse, the major change was the removal of e pluribus unum, which created a political firestorm at the time. However, the motto was actually first removed from coins in 1831 on the cap bust quarter, when they went to the smaller size quarter, but that didn't really create much controversy at the time. And in 1834, the debate went on for actually over 6 months as to whether or not to put the motto back on the coin starting in 1835, and that actually delayed the mint from producing new dies in 1835, and as a result, coins dated 1834 were actually minted in the year 1835. So it helps to understand how these coins were made when we get into the designs. The major design on the coin, the Miss Liberty and the Eagle, were hub punches. They were punched in, and then pretty much everything else that you see was punched in by hand afterwards. All the 13 stars, even Liberty across the headband, those letters were punched in. Obviously, the date was punched in on the obverse. The dentals as well, in a varied of methods during this time frame. On the reverse, even the pale gules and the azures and the shield were punched in. Leaves, arrows, all the dates in the letters as well. So you can see that we could end up possibly with many different looking die marriages. Here's a word that I just invented and used in the book. So while I was doing performing the historical research related to this book, which, by the way, I didn't know when I was doing it, that most reference books for series didn't really go that deep of a dive. It just seemed natural to me to include archival information and research when coming out with this reference book. So I tried to forget all the preconceived notions that I had reading the material that I did have available. My research style at the archives, the Library of Congress, museums that I visited was just gather all the information I could, put it in chronological order, and then step back and read through the story. Let the documents tell the story. What is it? What I found out was that the stories that the documents were telling me weren't necessarily the same ones that I've been reading in all these coin books all these years. So I came up with a definition. Numislore, a statement of fact about the history of U.S. coins published at least 3 times in numismatic books, periodicals, and intrasites that just ain't true. So I thought it'd be interesting to tell you about a few of these stories that are out there that I think a lot of you have probably heard in the past. Here's the first one. Now, I'll give you guys a second to read that as I get a sip of water. So if you're done reading, I'll go over it. Here's something that I'm sure a lot of you have read in the past about the design, the problem. Pretty much none of that is actually true. The change to the gold standard had been debated for months in Washington. I mean, they knew since War of 1812 had passed that coins were not circulating, so it was always an issue. So by early June of 1834, the mint ceased production of the cap bust gold, and it began working on the classic gold design. Depositors of gold at that time, which the mint could only use deposits, it didn't have its own gold to mint, they were told at the time that they would have to wait up to 90 days in order to get their gold back in coinage because of this change. The changes in the design, getting rid of the motto, E pluribus unum, and the cap, that had been planned since 1831, as I had mentioned before, and the mint was just waiting for an opportune time to make the change. They didn't make the change in order to distinguish the old tenor gold from the new tenor gold, though it was happenstance. And I also threw in the term old tenor gold and new tenor gold, which is really a modern thing that happened in the 70s. Back in the historical documents, they always referred to gold coins as from the old standard or the new standard. So also using August 1834 on the coins was never in the law, nor did the mint actually ever consider it. They thought it was a bad idea. Going back to the old design would only be if Mint Director Moore quit or was fired because he truly believed that the Liberty with a hat was not a proper depiction of her, of Miss Liberty. So let's take a look at Numislore number 2. Take a read. So I suppose that suspect that most of you have read this one at one point or other. There was a great rush to the U.S. Mint to turn in existing gold coins. All the old U.S. gold coins were melted at the mint, and that's why all the early quarter eagles and the half eagles are so rare. Well, none of that's true either. What's very clear from actually going to the National Archives and reading the correspondence and the contemporaneous documentation is that the mint in no way anticipated an onslaught of U.S. gold coins to be deposited in exchange for the new ones. In fact, in mid-August 1834, 2 weeks after they started minting these coins, Director Samuel Moore wrote to his boss, the Secretary of the Treasury, who was Levi Woodbury, to inquire as to whether it was even legal for him to accept U.S. gold coins for deposit and melting. So having gotten a positive response back, obviously they did accept old U.S. coins for deposit to turn into the new gold. But studying the gold deposit records, for one, of the mint for the first month of August of 1834 revealed that approximately $1 million a face of U.S. gold coins, or the drape bust and cap bust coins, were turned in. So that's not an insignificant number, but it represents only about 7% of all the U.S. gold coins that were minted up until that point. Most of that million that was turned in, or about $700,000, came from the specie reserve held by one of the big banks at the time. Actually, I believe it was the second bank. And over the next 5 years, only about an additional $200,000 a face was deposited, or another 1% of all the gold coins of the old standard. So the picture that might have been painted in people's minds that there was some sort of rush on the mint to have old gold coins melted, it never happened. That's not to say that a lot of the old U.S. gold coins that were shipped overseas and melted for their intrinsic content. That had been happening for some years. All right, I think the final one, here's another one I think a lot of you might have read. In August 1835, the mint engraver, William Neese, he suffered a stroke and became incapacitated. The mint immediately hired Christian Gobrecht to take his place, and henceforth Gobrecht designed all the U.S. coins, including subsequent design changes to classic gold coins. So Mr. Neese was out of the picture. So the reports of his incapacitation are greatly exaggerated, to paraphrase Mr. Clemens. Here's the real story. In August of 1835, Neese did become partly paralyzed on his right side, and he took some time off from work. To give credit to all of the designs after that point to Gobrecht would be inaccurate. Neese was functioning again by the end of 1835, and I believe he may have been away from work for only a matter of weeks. He continued his work at the mint, but on at least a couple of more occasions, he did have to take some time off to deal with his health. There are documents from the archives and other sources corroborating the fact that Neese continued his work as an engraver up through 1840. I believe that Neese continued to work on some of the designs of the classic gold, which, as we'll see later, was a lot of changes to Miss Liberty's head and so forth, on half cents and cents, on pattern half dollars, and the newly designed eagle, or $10 gold piece, which was introduced very late in 1838. That design is credited to Christian Gobrecht, as are pretty much any and all their designs after 1835. If you open up the Red Book and you go to the section for $10 eagles, you will find Christian Gobrecht listed as the designer and engraver. Why is that? Because of this Numis lore, became to known that Neese couldn't have possibly have done it because he wasn't working after 1835. Actually, I believe that Neese designed the $10 eagle and not Gobrecht, but that's a topic for another day. Here's a letter I found. Actually, I didn't find it. I think Mr. Julian provided this letter to me. Got a lot of help from other researchers, including, shout out to Roger Burdett as well. A letter that Neese wrote in June of 1840 back to Patterson, who was the mint director. He took a leave of absence to go to the Greenbrier Spa in White Sulphur Springs. And if you note the perfect penmanship, not somebody who perhaps couldn't continue with his engraving duties, and he did mention that he was going to be back to work in a couple of weeks. Unfortunately, he did pass away a couple of months after this date. So there's some information for you on the historics. Give you a little background and perspective on the series. Now let's talk a little bit about the coins themselves. Here we have the total run of both quarter eagles and half eagles from 1834 to 1839. The total mintage for the quarter eagles, 968,000, that actually exceeds all of the quarter eagle coins minted up until that point, 1796 through 1834, by a factor of 5. In fact, in the first 2 years, it exceeded all the prior mintage. Early quarter eagles are extremely rare. On the half eagles, that total number of 2.1 million, that's about on par or the same amount of half eagles that were minted up until that point in time, 1834. The mintages that you've seen are drawn from the annual reports of the mint, with I think with one exception, and are reported in the Red Book. All the asterisks that you see are instances where I found that coins were actually minted in the year after they were dated, and thus these mintages need to be adjusted. And I made estimates in my book, and I actually made specific, very detailed estimates on a couple of dates. As an example, like an 1834 Class Eagle, you might be familiar with the 1834 Half Eagle Crosslet 4 variety, one of the only ones recognized, at least by the third-party grading services. The entire production of those Crosslet 4s were actually made in 1835. And as you can see, some dates have very low mintages, and the survival rate of this series is actually extremely low. Here's an idea of the amount of die marriages that you can expect to see. This was a main thrust of my book, to get this information out. Up until now, there was really not a reference, but as I said, John McCloskey had done quite a bit of work on this, as well as Mark Borchardt. So you need 62 coins to complete a set. And as of this point in time, both PCGS and NGC will now attribute these die marriages on the holders and include in their population report according to the HM scale, which is the Haynor-McCloskey system. Let's take a look at a few coins. What I'm going to do here is let you look at some nice coins to get an idea, and also try to point out some things that we look at when we try to attribute these coins by die marriage. But certainly I'm not going to do a lot of detail. Here's an 1834 quarter eagle. You'll see if you go to the back, they call it a small head, and you'll see when we get to the next coin the difference. But a small head, straight hair in the back, curls lesser so, and another thing you'll see, just like I think it's the 1992 Lincoln cent now that's getting a lot of attention, the AM, they come close and wide. This one happens to be a close. And I also give you on each of these an R rating, rarity rating, from my scale goes from 1 to 8. So here's an 1834 quarter eagle, and I'm having trouble with my laser for some reason. Here's a large head 1834 quarter eagle. Notice the hair difference. It's very easy to spot. There's a big indent right here on the hair that's different. And then if you look at the AM, you'll see that that's a wide AM. So there's a couple of things to spot to differentiate these coins. This large head one was referred to as a booby head, which actually started in the 1950s. I'm not a big fan of those types of names. Here's an 1835 quarter eagle. First, I will tell you that this is a graded 65 plus, and it's the finest known, and it's the only gem coin graded. But you might also notice, if you look at the central devices, that it is quite mushy in the center, both along the hair underneath the Liberty and on the eagle's breast and in the shield. This confirms there's a general perception that most classic gold is not well struck. Sometimes that's true, depending on the dates, and sometimes that's very untrue. Here's a case of a date that was very weakly struck, and believe it or not, this coin is probably one of the better well-struck coins for 1835. Just in the central, if you look at the stars, for instance, they're actually fully struck up. Here's an 1836, second finest known actually. 1836 are probably the most difficult to attribute, both the quarter eagles and half eagles. One thing that you'd look at, I'll show you on the next slide, is take a look at Liberty's nose and where the fillet meets as well. That will change. One other thing, the third-party grading services put script 8 and block 8 on the holder is partly identifying the obverse die. So you need one of each for a full set according to them. My advice to you on that, ignore it. There are 8 die marriages total for 1836. 5 are script and 3 are block 8. Some are rare and some are common. In fact, I was just putting together some information yesterday for this presentation, and I noticed for the first time that I use a rarity rating of R1 to R8, and there are 8 die marriages in 1836 quarter eagle, and in fact, each one has a different rating. So there's a rarity 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So if you were to pick up a script 8 or a block 8 coin on the holder and you want that, the chances are you're going to get an R1 and an R2 coin. And one other thing, the script 8, block 8, after looking at more than several hundred, the population I estimate is about 60%, 40%. So this the survivor population is not really that different at all either. Here's a quick look at the different, I wanted to point out here the different heads that you might see on these coins. For some reason that I really wanted to, but was unfortunately not able to find, was why there was so much experimentation and change, if you will, on the heads of these gold coins. Here you see the head of 1834. You can look and see the large curls, and then get the indent. If you remember the 1834 booby head or large head coin, it looks very similar to that. Here's a coin I just showed you last slide. You can see that a curvature in the nose and the fillet is back, and then compare that over to this coin, the head of 1837. You can see from the top of the fillet down the nose, it's pretty much a straight line. So there's differences there. There's always differences. There are differences in block 8, script 8, and there's also differences. A good way to tell on these coins is you look at the star 6, look and see where that aligns up with Miss Liberty. That's an easy spot. That's in Mark Burkhart's guide. Does a very good job at this. He relies on it put more of an emphasis on it than I did. But that's another way to tell between the different styles. I'll be with you in a second as soon as my pointer decides to cooperate. Maybe I won't use the pointer anymore. Let's get rid of it. Okay, here's an 1837 quarter eagle, and I'll point out for now, we're going to get back to this. Remember this, when we get to the cherry picking time, remember this point. I don't want to, I guess I might not point as much as I want to anymore, but look at the third arrow on the bottom on the reverse that's pointing to the A. You see where that's touching. Keep that in mind. This particular die marriage represents over 99% of all the 1837 quarter eagles that you could find. And you're starting to pick up, although there is a die crack through star 9 there that I think you can see. that the quality of the coins is starting to improve now as a result of all of the changes that were made in the mint and brought back by Peel from Europe. That's really the primary reason for that is a result of the triumvirate, if you will, of the new steam toggle press, a new blanking press, a new milling machine, all designed by Franklin Peel, where the consistency and the detail of these coins start to improve, and moreover, less failures and die cracks and that sort of thing as a result of consistent pressure and consistency of the blanks and planchets. This is a ex-Harry Bass coin. Now, take a look and see when I turn to 1838 what differences you can pick up right away with a coin. Here's an 1838. If you noticed the wide rim, and look at the stars, smaller stars. Let's go back, toggle back to 1837, take a look at the stars and look at the rim, and now look at 1838. Again, sort of a result of the process that I just described. This coin happens to be it's the only MS67 coin graded in both series. This coin is just absolutely stunning. Here's an 1838C, first coin minted at the Charlotte Mint. Not really a pretty good job, if you ask me, for first effort at the Charlotte Mint. And they only used one die marriage, but note the mint mark on the front of the coin. The first time that happened on the U.S. coins, and fairly unique. I'm going to circle back away from the coins and show you a really interesting thing that I found in the archives, and I put a little write-up on this in the books. The Charlotte branch mint opened to the public on December 4th, 1837. And on that day, if you can read, you can probably make it out, Mr. Irwin and Elms made the very first deposit of gold at the branch mint. They received this mint certificate, which you can see labeled number 1 in the amount of $2,000. The Charlotte Mint didn't start minting coins until March of 1838, I believe. But I thought this was a pretty neat find. This was actually partially misfiled. I don't know if anybody had seen these before. In fact, when I did find them, there was a whole stack of these mint certificates or all out of order. And so I got permission from the archives to put the folder in some semblance of order. So I thought it was a pretty neat find at the archives. Here's an 1839 quarter eagle. This is actually MS62, which happens to be the highest graded coin of this date. I think this is 1839 is probably my favorite date of both series. There's probably less than 15 that exist in mint state and less than 150 overall. By the time you get into circulated grades, it's a little bit easier to find these coins. And note, I also wanted to point out, as we get to further coins, I don't know if you can see right there in the middle is a center dot. That's found on some coins, most coins, up until 1838 on the half eagles. But they would put a scribe here and then put lines all around the outside so they knew where to put the stars and the date on the coin. So you'll see some center dots on coins. Here's an 1839C. We'll look for here. It says branch over D. On the reverse in the denomination, you'll see the the branch on the two different marriages are in a different position. This date, 1839C, is probably the toughest date to find in an original and attractive condition, one that's not dipped, cleaned, abraded, and planchet flawed, and a lot of them look like brass buttons to me. If you don't believe me on that, you can please get a hold of Doug Winter and ask him his opinion. Here's an 1839 D with the strong branch. If you can see the difference, if you look at the branch down at the D, I'm sorry, I'm not going to point anymore. It seems to get stuck every time I try to do it. Same obverse, different reverse. Not a really bad effort by Dahlonega either. But you'll notice that particularly on the reverse, you'll see a bit of a rough planchet on the reverse. Dahlonega, they had some problems with their rolling machines and annealing, and they actually started with some pretty rough planchets and did the best that they could. So an 1839D with a weak branch. Again, that's a difference we look for. And I haven't pointed out yet the berry. I don't know if, oh, the pointer's back. Berries are located right here in between leaves 1, 2, 3, and 4. Here they are not there. That's another distinguishing factor. I think I'm going to have to pick up the pace here in order to get to the cherry picking guide. So let's go through it a little more quickly. So an 1839 quarter eagle. Difference here, high and wide means that the date is high as compared to the dentals. Wide meaning that the 1 and 2 in the denomination are separated from the vinculum or the slash versus the other one where we referred to it as the low and close. Low date and 1 and 2 are close, if not touching the vinculum. All right, some half eagles. This was the first die marriage minted, the HM3, first coin sent to President Jackson while he was in his home in Tennessee. We looked for script versus 8 on the 1834 half eagles. We look at the 4 because, as we know, there's a crosslet 4. That's easy to spot. There's also a version that's a triple punched 4. And on this coin, we look for whether or not the eagle has a tongue or not, and a berry or not. Here that you see this guy has no tongue and no berry. Just some of the things we look for to attribute these marriages. Here's 1835 half eagle. This is a finest known coin, even though it's quote only a 64. No gems exist in Philadelphia. One thing to point out is leaf 4/3. It's 1, 2, 3, 4. This is 4/3. This has a leaf 4/3. There's 18 reverse dies for all the half eagles over 5 years. This is the only reverse that has leaf 4/3. All the other 17 have the leaf 3/4. However, it doesn't help a heck of a lot because this leaf 4/3 was actually used in 8 different die marriages over 3 years, 1834, 5, and 6. But that's one thing that you can look for. And you can see by this time, in 1835, it had been used quite a bit. And another spot to look at is, I'm pointing at the N in United. You see the big blob right there? That just grew and grew until finally that die obviously failed at the end. 1836, so it's a gem 65 out of the Harry Bass collection. As I said before, 1836s are a little bit harder to attribute because there's more of them, and they are a little bit more similar. We look to how many, there's 1 or 2 forelocks on Miss Liberty. And notice here on this coin, there's a different reverse because leaf 3 is over 4. So that's a starter, a clue for you as to what to look for. 1837, I call it the broken arrow because if you look at the middle arrow, you'll see that there is no arrow in the middle. Forgot to punch it in. The other interesting thing is if you follow the lines on the arrow, with the shaft, you'll see that this guy's crooked and this guy's crooked too. So in case these three arrows were usually, if not always, punched in separately. $1838. 2 points to make on this coin. First, I personally feel that the coin you're looking at is the most eye-appealing classic gold coin to have survived, including both series, so the nicest. 2, 1838 was the first year that the majority of the coin was actually was hubbed. In other words, all of the devices on the obverse were placed on the master die, except for the digit 8. So they made one. The difference is there's a difference in where the 8 was placed, and again, with everything being hubbed, they wouldn't have to do any alignment or do a center scroll and line up all the arrows and dates. So this coin has no center dot. The other version does have a center dot, because I believe what they did is they scribed a line and wanted to put the 8 in a different in a proper place. I don't know that, I'm just speculating, but there's definitely a way to tell the difference between these two coins is a center dot and no center dot. Two more coins. 1838C Half Eagle. This is MS63, is finest graded in this date. Very rare. There's only, up until just 2 years ago, there actually was only one coin, this coin, in MS63 condition to begin with. This is an ex-Bass coin. And a difference here we would look forward would be leaves 1 and 2 here. You see on U and United they're touching. On the other coin they're in quite a different position. Same obverse. And the 1838D, first year of issue, the only coin made by Dahlonega at the time, and just one die marriage. So that's it for the coins. So as I said, let's do some cherry picking. I went over this already, but first I'm going to tell you what not to look for. The script 8 versus block 8. As I said before, the script 8s represent about 60% of the total population. The blocks are 40, and I described to you the different rarity ratings of these coins. So we've pretty much gone. I went over that in the last slide before. Here's something to look for. Remember I told you oh, wrong coin. I think I'm going to skip over this one quickly because I started out with a tough one for you guys, so we're running a little short on time. But on this one, 1836, here's the R7 that I mentioned. Here's what to look for, the head of 1837, where you see the straight nose. There's straight nose, there's going to be script 8 on it, and there's going to be no berry on the coin. If you keep those three things in mind, that will be an R7 coin for you. Tough one to remember, but we're running out of time. I'm going to go to a couple of easier ones for you to remember. Remember I told you in the 1837, 99% of the coins are of one die marriage. There's 3 die marriages for 1837 quarter eagles. On most of them, the arrow is touching. Here it comes. As you can see on the coin on the right, the arrow is away from the A. There are, as of now, only 5 coins known to exist in this die marriage, and the finest is an AU58. So there's an easy thing to keep in mind. 1837 quarter eagle, A away from the arrow. Here's the other die marriage for 1837, another R7. What to look for? Pale gules. For whatever reason, the quarter eagles were minted with 3 pale gules. You see on the bottom. They changed that on this version of the quarter eagle to go to 2. This is the proof issue. This happens to be an impaired proof from the Smithsonian that was fortunate enough to go visit their collection. So there's another thing to look for, are two pale gules. And if you notice on this coin, the arrow is also not touching. So either way, you're good with no arrows touching. So keep out a lookout for those two. And here's the last one. This one's easy. Remember I told you about the quarter eagles. Forget about script 8, block 8. Well, 1836 half eagles, remember it. Here's a coin. Okay, I have more of a picture to put up for you. This coin was actually discovered by John McCloskey. There are 9 different die marriages for the 1836 half eagle. There's only one die marriage that has a script 8, just one. And again, at this point in time, there are only 6 of these coins known. So look for 1836 half eagle, look for script 8, and you have yourself a rare die marriage. So that's it. There's my contact information, my email, if anybody has any questions or would just like to chat about these coins. And if anyone is interested in the book, of course, they have to plug it. You can order it through wizardcoinsupply.com, has the book available.
Alrighty, then we can go through a few of the questions in the Q&A. Daryl, if you can go ahead and hit that stop share button at the top of your screen. There we go. And audience members, again, there's a Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. Just click on that and type in any questions, and we will get to as many as we can. So we have one in here. Is it possible to collect all of the varieties?
Yes, but however, the rarest variety is a quarter eagle. That's a proof only issue, and there's only 2 of them known. There are the couple that I just mentioned to you are probably the next rarest, or 5 or 6 known. So it's very possible. I think as this gets more popular, more people look that more of these much more rare varieties are probably going to be found. So with the exception of perhaps that proof only 1836 quarter eagle with 2 proofs known, the rest are doable.
For a beginning or intermediate collector with a limited budget, what is the easiest on-ramp strategy to starting a collection of this set?
The easiest on-ramp?
Yes.
I would suggest, well, like I always say, study up on the series. I think with if you're going to start with coins that are, collector coins, we'll call them, the circulated coins, be careful because they are out there. There are a lot of them. There's on the circulated side. Uncirculated is a completely different story. However, you will find a lot of them that have been cleaned, that are not necessarily that attractive. So be patient. And there are a lot available. I'd suggest perhaps find a dealer in the know, somebody like a Doug Winter, who can help you learn about what's a good collectible coin and what is not.
Is there a collectors group for these coins like there is for Liberty seeded coins?
Oh no, I was lonely for many years. I do have a few folks that have been in contact with me that have now started to collect the series. So hopefully if we get more interest, I think we would start that to those that wanted. We could share contact information or whatever and start the semblance of a group. But no, there's nothing like that now.
Can you explain the difference between a block 8 and a script 8?
I can show you a picture quickly, I hope.
Go for it.
How's that one? Can we see it?
We cannot. You'll have to go back to Zoom to hit that screen share button again and set it up like we did before.
Exit. My IT department's talking to me.
Good deal.
You want to do it? Okay. Yeah. No. All right, I guess I won't be able to show you. The block 8, two very circular, similar upper and lower ovals. In fact, if you look at on the inside, that looks more like a block or a square on the inside, versus the script 8 is more scripty, if you will, a little more curvy. No, that's okay. I'm sorry, that's the best I can describe it. I'm trying to get out of my slideshow, and now I can't. So go ahead, Leanne. You have the next question?
Okay.
I'll work on this.
Which date/variety is the most common for type collectors?
There's several R1s, I would say. For a type collector, if you're looking for ones with strike, obviously the 1834s are the most available. So look there, you can find some with nice strikes, nice color, etc. So for type, yeah, the more common 1834 and 1836, I would side towards the 1834.
Okay, and then if we want to go back to the block 8 and script 8, I've pulled up the image from PCGS, so we can share that if you want to talk about it.
Oh.
There, so you should be able to see, this is just the comparison from PCGS Coin Facts, but if you want to explain that where we can see it now, you can.
Wow, I'm impressed you did that so quickly. But yeah, you see on the left is the block. You see that the two circles look pretty similar to each other. If you look on the inside, you'll see that it's kind of blocky or squared off looking. Okay, that's a block 8. On the other side is the script 8, where you see it's a little more curvy. You can imagine where the 8s come in, yeah, and they circle around a little bit, and you end up with an oval on the inside. So that is a script 8.
There we go. Take that down. Okay. Alrighty, that was all the questions in the Q&A. We do have a couple compliments and a plug for Daryl's book. The book is logically laid out, easy to understand, and has very nice images as examples. So
I appreciate that.
Alrighty. We have, if you have any last minute questions, get them typed quickly. Otherwise, we are going to wrap it up in time for the next sessions to start. Daryl, do you have any closing remarks you would like to share?
No, just that I appreciate everybody hopping on. I hope you've learned something. I hope I was helpful, and I hope if anybody takes a further interest in this series, please don't hesitate to get a hold of me.
Alrighty, sounds good. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to present with us. And I know I've seen you in some of the other sessions as well. So thank you for taking the time to join us. And audience members, thank you as well. If you want to join some of our presentations next hour, we have 2 going. Let's see. We have Matthew Chiarello, whose last name I probably just butchered, and Jason Urquia-Salabay, and they are on the schedule. So feel free to join in those as well, and hope to see you all a little bit more throughout the day.